There was another technique that I heard, which is you can target companies that are hiring roles and just reach out to those who are actually advertising that they're looking for a designer and say, hey, I'm not looking to join, but if you're looking for a part-time person, how about we try this? And that could be a fruitful strategy. But I think it's also really about proactivity and not being reactive like, shit, I don't have any clients. What am I going to do? But just be like, okay, well, I don't have any client, or like this project's about to finish. How do I get new clients? So healthy pipeline is always kind of this proactive game of like, you're trying to just extend that runway. And even if it's a client that's been with you for like 2 years, you can still get dropped, right? So you also need to check that pulse and be like, how's things going? What could I do better? And that could also extend that healthy pipeline, the one that you're just working with, and then proactively getting out there and kind of just being a bit uncomfortable, because I know most designers hate sales, which is really interesting. Everybody sells. Every human that presents is fundamentally sales. So if you still have to do it. And I heard this thing the other day, which is quite funny. The worse you are at sales, the more you have to do. So you might as well get good at it, because and then every client you speak to, you end up closing. So you don't have to do as much selling. But if you're terrible at it, you just have to do more of it because you keep on striking out.
That's a really good idea. I think something I would add too is I've heard of a few people lately that will, in those outbound reaches, they'll send a little 5-minute video clip of themselves talking. And I've heard people have pretty good success with that, because I feel like one of the worst ways to get a project is to send a cold message to someone that you've never met before. You've never engaged with them before. They have no idea who you are. And you say, hey, I'm looking for a job. Do you have any leads for me? I just can't imagine anyone ever giving them a referral or a lead from that sort of message. But this happens all the time. I get random messages sometimes from someone I've never heard of before, and they just say, hey, I'm looking for a job. Can you give me some referrals? There's such a low chance of anyone actually saying, yeah, I'd have no idea who you are, but I'm going to stick my neck out for you and like refer you to someone. It just doesn't happen that way. So anything you can do to build the trust. If it is somebody that posts regularly on social media, comment on their posts a few times for a few weeks. Even that would be like, then when you reach out to them, they're like, oh, I've seen you before. Like, thanks for commenting on my post. Like, it makes a huge difference, even that. Or the sending a little video to let them see that you are social, you're friendly. So that gives them a better chance to see you as a person and see that you have good qualities, that you're easy to talk to. So that's one thing I've seen that working for a few people.
All right, let's go for another one. If I'm planning to run a one-person business in product design, what's the best way to get started?
It sort of depends on the country you live in. In the US, I had to figure out insurance, health insurance, all that is tied to employment in the US. So that was tricky. I had to figure that out. Taxes, I found a really good accountant. I mean, I've always worked with accountants to make sure that I'm good with my taxes. Half the battle is doing the design work and finding leads, but then there's all this like logistical stuff that you have to take care of. So getting set up in that way, there's still a few more things I need to do. Like, you don't need a robust website, but having a website for someone to go and learn about your product design business. My website, I wouldn't look to mine as the perfect example of being a one-person product design business, but it's okay because it shows my work and it gives a way to contact me. And that's the main two things people are going to look for anyway. But I definitely need to throw some testimonials on there. That would help. So if you're going to start a product design business, you need to put yourself out there. You need to have a place for people. If you do put yourself out there, what are they going to do? They're probably going to want to learn more about you. So they're going to want to click on a link. So where do they go? You might need to provide a website that tells a little about yourself, gives some credibility by showing your work, showing what other people say about you, some of your past colleagues, past clients. So yeah, those are some things that come to mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have a question. We think it all the time, but we never discuss it, or we should discuss it more, but it just doesn't get discussed, which is, how do you fire a client? What's the best way to fire a client?
Wow, that's a good question. I've been fired by one client. It just wasn't a good fit. I was halfway through the project, and every time I would send them something to review, I just could not get it right. I would take detailed notes on what they wanted. Well, part of it is they wouldn't tell me exactly what they wanted. They literally use the phrase, I'll know it when I see it. And anytime you're doing client work, if somebody says that, it's like a huge red flag. So I was basically just trying so hard to nail it, trying different things. And it was a complex product. It was a dashboard of all things. So it's like, there's so many ways to try to do this. Anyway, it was not a fun project. Every time I'd send it over, they were just so unhappy. And I was like, man, I am struggling. Do I just suck as a designer? What is going on here? Like, why can I not get this? Anyway, we're halfway through the project. They had paid me the first 50% of the invoice. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to finish this. Thankfully, they emailed me and they said, hey, this isn't going to work out. We're going to have to part ways now. And I was like, Like at first I was a little shocked and a little sad, like, oh my goodness, like it stung. I was like, I've never been fired before from a client. And so at first that was my reaction. But then moments later, I was like, oh, what a relief. Like I was going to, after we finished the project, I was going to part ways with them anyway. So I didn't get the chance to fire them. But if I was going to do it, I would probably try to be kind about it. They were kind in their message to me, which was helpful. They're just like, hey, this isn't working. We need to part ways. And so I would probably say something similar.
You're too nice. You're too nice, Trevor. That's fair enough, right? You don't want to burn the bridges. I did start this productized agency, or I at least tried it, and I got my first client relatively quickly in like 10 days. And it was from my network of folks like me just reaching out to be like, oh, by the way, I'm starting this thing. Do you require some work? And I managed to get a client relatively quickly, but the client in the same situation as Trevor, which was like, I just couldn't get things right. Also, like really crappy feedback, just borderline kind of rude. And I was just like, what, is it just me? Or do I not take feedback well? What's going on here, right? So I finished the month and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not charging them enough for the crappy work that I'm doing. So I'm just going to double it. And I'm like, okay, if you want to work with me next month, it's going to be 2x the price that you paid. This was like a trial month for me for if I wanted to do this. And that's basically how I fired them, because they were just like, no, we're not going to go for it. That was one technique that I did when I was like, no, let's just bump the price up. There are clients out there that are just better that you don't work with them. As you mentioned, Trevor, that is not a fit. Trevor, let me ask you this actually. Is there anything you want to talk about that we didn't touch on?
I think one thing that would be fun to talk about would be the whole.
Want to listen to the full conversation? Click the video on screen now. Subscribe to the channel if you want to join us live. Oh, wait. Okay, fine, you don't have to join us for the live stream, but if you like stuff like this, then click that subscribe button. I'll see you on the inside. Bye!